Greetings. This is Arvette McLean of Speak, the Universe Listens.
We cherish that. We love that particular piece of it because
teach people like, hey, it's okay, change.
New ways to view age-old challenges. Change your thoughts, change your life. Step into the bigness of you. Greetings and welcome to today's episode of Speak, the Universe Listens. And today's topic is being aware of the role of energy in our lives. And this may end up being a two-part episode because it's a lot to talk about. But when we talk, I want to say hello. Hey, Steve. Hey, how y'all doing? How's everybody out there doing?
She almost forgot about it.
Yes, but energy fields, I often talk about energy fields and our energy and the energy that we're putting out into the world and the energy that we're, like I always talk about how we're vibrating and what's our frequency and that type of thing. So I wanted to be sure that everyone is kind of on the same page, a working definition of what is it that I'm talking about when I talk about energy fields. And we all know we talk about energy on a daily basis. We talk about things like, you know, my energy is low today, or yeah, the energy in that room was off the chain, you know, or yeah, she feels good. She's got real good energy. So yes. So we talk about energy fields on a regular basis. But I think I really want us to kind of start discussing like really what it is and how we can start making it work for us in our lives. So I'm gonna start off with you, Teron. Like when I talk about energy fields, what do you think of when I'm saying that?
Yeah, well, that's a great question because if you had asked me a few years ago, I would have told you it's all about the location. Like when you're on vacation, your energy is higher than when you may be at work. But recently, due to many conversations with you, I'm realizing that we usually take our energy with us. So now when I think about energy, I think about how I feel in myself and what my feeling is. Like, how am I feeling today? Am I upbeat today, or is something bothering me? And if something's bothering me, then I want to try and maybe figure that out to try and raise up my energy level.
So in terms of like these flowers, do you think these flowers have an energy field?
Yes. Yes, I
They're radiating. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
The energy they give off, the aura. So it's just like the words that you use. You know, that can be something that you can say. That's the energy. For me, it's more of it's a feeling, visual, but for the most part, it's my thought. What am I thinking at the moment? And if I'm thinking good, you know, if I'm thinking happy, just good positive thoughts, then when I step out or I go anywhere, people will be able to feel like, wow, okay, this guy got a good vibe with him. His energy is really, it's really good. I can feel it. They don't even know me, but it just can. It's just the vibe and the energy that I give off.
And so, it's so funny that you say that because, you know, I usually, after I do my workouts in the morning, I still take a walk at the park. And so I get to see the same people basically every day. And they all kind of respond in a similar way on a daily basis. And so the day after I had just learned that morning that my book had made it to the bestsellers list. So I was just like beaming, right? Yeah, and so even though the people around me at the park, they didn't know that had happened, but every single person was like, good morning, good morning. And I was just like, why is everybody so happy today? But then I realized realize, okay, they're vibrating off of me. Like they're noticing that my energy is just off the chain, and so they're responding in kind.
Right. And it's almost like sometimes when you can run into somebody and your energy may not be like, you may be in an okay mood, you're just in a mellow mood, and somebody can just be so upbeat and so happy and jolly, and they speak to you and they just have a conversation with you, and you have to respond on their level.
Exactly.
Like it just makes you just level up out of nowhere.
And I have to say that about both of y'all. Like, I call Tehran on a regular basis. And most of the times when I'm calling him, it's because I can't get something to work right. You know, I'm just not tech savvy at all. So I'm always like, I'll try and try and try to do it on my own because I'm like, I don't want to bother him. And so, but I'm like, and so I'll say, he'll answer the phone. He'll go, "Hey, Andrea." I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?"
Then it make you feel a little bit more better than ask him. You know what? I need your help.
I just think energy is important, and I think our energy fields are important. So you want to try and keep it upbeat because, again, we create everything that happens around us. So the more upbeat that we are, typically things feel like they're going better. Like even if something like small happens that might be like an inconvenience, like when you're upbeat and your energy is up, it kind of just doesn't feel like it. It's just like, oh, that's like a little pebble in the road. Let's keep trucking.
And so every single thing has its own energy. Everything, a rock has its own energy. And if you look at anything under a microscope, even though it might look solid to us, but when you look at it under a microscope, you can see that it's just balls of pulsating energy. And when you look at, I'm going to say this, even though this might be a little bit off task, but when you look at a cell, there's nothing there. There's nothing inside of it. It's just energy, right? And so we think of ourselves as these solid,
3D.
Right. But if you look at us at our smallest part, it's nothing there. It's just vibrating energy. And so talking about energy fields is like so relevant, even though we tend to think that, okay, so I feel good today, I don't feel good today. Like we kind of box it in. But really, when you think that there's nothing here except energy, then and you know how energy flows. Right? So if I'm just vibrating energy, that means I'm affecting every single thing around me. And every single thing around me is affecting me. And so we're not limited, as we think, to this, just what happens here. We expand to every single thing in the world.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of something that I believe Scott might have said in the previous episode. Well, he might have been doing a project with his daughter, and they were speaking to, it was either bread or rice. But rice. Yeah, and it was all depending on like the words and how they were speaking to it, and the energy that they were giving the rice, like determined what was happening with the rice.
Exactly.
So again, our energy does flow through everything, and everything's energy does flow through us. So I guess in a weird sense, we're affected by our environment, but at the same time, we are our environment.
Exactly.
So you're affected by yourself.
Both and I always say this, and I know a lot of times people are like, what is she talking about? But when I say we are the same, I'm not saying we're similar.
Right.
I'm saying we are the same. I am you, and you are me. There's a constant exchange. And one thing that we know just from, living life, you can think about somebody all on the other side of the world, and that person will call you.
Very true.
Yeah. And so what does that say to you?
I mean, your energy speaks volumes. It's more like, I can tell you, growing up, I remember just in my neighborhood at the time, and I noticed that everybody, like, I could just walk down the neighborhood and people would just stare at you. Don't speak, don't say nothing, but it seemed like it was just normal. So anywhere I go, I'm like, I just look at people, and they look back. We'll nod, and we just keep on moving. Nobody says hi, how you doing, or smile, nothing. So now it's totally different. You know, if I see somebody, I would speak, because beforehand it was foreign when somebody was speaking in the neighborhood. And, you know, you just say, "Hey man, how you doing?" They look at you like, "What's wrong with you?" Yeah, why you so? Yeah, I know you, you know. And then I was like, you know, I don't need to know you to speak to you, you know, just to say, "Hey, you know, how you doing?" Because that person, they may be a little off, or even something may be wrong, but just by me speaking, it just made them be like, "Okay, all right." So they eventually, I noticed, every time they'll see me or they may see somebody else, they start to speak, you know, and the energy just, it changes. And so what you're saying, the energy, it just, it speaks a lot of volumes, you know.
I was watching a podcast the other day, and goodness, I wish I could remember the gentleman's name, but he had said something that, like, when he said it, it didn't make much sense to me. Well, I didn't pay it much mind, but now that we're having this conversation, it makes sense. He said your energy is usually appears in the room before you do, and you know, when he said it, I was like, no, it doesn't, like, because I'm not gonna be somewhere and they're gonna feel me before I'm there. Like, it's me getting there. But no, now I get it. Your energy does, because like you just said, we can think about somebody from literally across the country and they'll call. So yeah, our energy does enter in rooms before us, which kind of leads me to always want to just keep it upbeat, because if this, my first impression is no longer my first impression. Now my first impression is whatever energy or vibration I'm taking into that room with me.
By you just saying that, it just made me think about, have you ever been in a room and you just feel like somebody's watching you? Or somebody's just looking at you, and then you just so happen to turn around and then you catch whoever's looking at you, or and that's your energy, just like you feel it, like you know, like, hold up, wait a minute.
Or even you can walk into a room and it could be nobody in the room. Or everybody in the room could be quiet and you'd be like, something just went down.
Yeah. You just feel the whole energy. That's exactly how it feels, right? Yeah. But I noticed that, like you said, when you step into the room, you can just really, the aura, you can feel the whole energy in the room without knowing nobody. Like, I can see you, and I can just automatically, you can just not say a word, but I'm like, hey, all right, you give off an approachable vibe, you know. That gives off this just loving vibe, you know. Rodney gives off this just a Rodney vibe, good vibe. So,
like, one of the things, and I know I've shared this with you guys before, but one of the things that before I even understood energy and this whole thing, I remember when you guys, Teron and Rodney, they were like children, and when I would come to their grandmother's house, their grandmother would always say, every time you come around, they start acting good. They don't act like that unless you come around. Or whatever. And I always thought that was cute, but then when I started, I worked at a school, and then I would get that same feedback, like, we know when you walked into the building. We know when you come into the building, because the whole energy of the school shifts. And I'm like, that's really interesting. And that was before I, really understood any of this stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you were changing the energy of a whole building as you were walking in.
And I guess it was like they know what my energy is. I think we all change the energy when we walk in, right? But being able to identify what someone's energy is. And this I don't even know if this is going to make sense to you guys. But a lot of times when, let's say you might call somebody or they call you and you be like, I was just thinking of you. So I always wonder, were they thinking about me or was I thinking about them?
I get that.
Does that make sense, right? And so I would be like, which one of us is, putting the energy out and which one of us is receiving? And so one day I was actually on a cruise out in the middle of nowhere, right? And so your phones typically don't work. And some kind of way, a message came through on my phone, right? Like in the middle of nowhere. But anyway, before the message had came through, I had felt somebody's energy, but I couldn't place it, but it was familiar. And I just had this feeling like somebody, I could just feel it. But I'm like, who is this? Who is this? Who is this? And then I heard that phone vibrate. And I'm like, what's the phone doing? And I went and looked, And the exact person, that's when I was like, oh, that's who this feeling was.
Right.
And so that kind of helped me to see that they were actually thinking of me, and I picked up on their energy, right? Because I wasn't thinking of them.
I ran into that. I don't know how many times. It's like deja vu. You know, you think about something, and then when you think about it, it just happens. And then you don't really think about it when it happens, but then after it happens, you're like, I thought about that. You're like, yeah, I thought about that, and it's crazy. It happens the exact same way as how you envisioned it happening for yourself. But yeah, energy is it's really quite interesting. I think everybody knows that. It's almost like we're giving the people a refresher course, because we all know that, what you think, you bring it into existence, and so how you feel, that's the energy that you're just going to attract. So if you're feeling good, you're going to attract good energy. So I would tell you, if anything, try to, not try to, but just think about your energy. What is it that you are thinking about on a daily basis? Resonating with bad situations in your life, and if so, why? What is it that you're thinking about? Are you feeling depressed? If you're feeling depressed, you're gonna get more of it.
Yeah, so definitely like attracts like, and that's the main thing that the whole point, really, of talking about energy fields and of understanding how far-reaching they are, because the very thought that I'm thinking, when they talk about karma, for example, a lot of times we think of karma as something that's happening. Like I do something today and then I can expect it to happen sometime in the future. But really, karma happens today. So whatever I'm putting out in the world today, I'm putting it out in the world, and I'm taking it in as well. So when I'm thinking negative thoughts about people, I'm also thinking negative thoughts about myself. And that's how our bodies respond to the negativity that we're putting out in the world. And so, like I always say, a lot of times we think that when we're putting out this negative energy, we think we're doing something good, in the sense of I'm criticizing someone who isn't doing something right. And so we think that's okay. But we really just shifting our focus, instead of focusing on what they're doing wrong, what people aren't, they should be doing this and they should be doing that. That's hurting us as well as hurting the people in the world. And it's like, I know one day, for example, when I was thinking about this stuff, I tend to, it was like I was having a washer and dryer delivered, and it was just a mess in terms of, them not showing up. And then when they showed up, I had to help these grown men bring in the washing machine, And anyway, it was a crazy situation. So in my head, I'm just thinking like,
you just going off. Going off.
Like, I'm not on the payroll here, And so I'm thinking all this stuff, and then I'm like, you know what? I'm putting out exactly what I don't want, And like, it's great if we can start catching ourselves in the moment when we're putting out what we don't want. So that's what we tend to do. We tend to look around and find everything that's wrong and point to it. That's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. And so what I would encourage is, instead of pointing to what's wrong, think of at least one way that whoever that person is, that's something great about them. And I think you were talking about this recently or whatever, which is basically looking to love something about them, instead of being so quick to judge and point the finger. Because when you point that finger,
right back,
you're getting that karma right back to you. So I think that's my main thing about energy field. What Stephen said, like attracts like. What you put out, you're going to get back. Recognizing that we are connected to everything. And so even though I think it's a you and me conversation, it's going out into the world. So being very conscious about the thoughts that you're thinking, and recognizing that the more loving you can be, the more. And a lot of times, like my mom used to always say, I love me. Like, you love you. You love you. or whatever. But you know, in hindsight, I'm able to see that's one of the best loves you can have is love for self, because when you're loving you, you are automatically loving everybody else. That energy is going out to the whole world. So focusing that love on you, loving yourself, and then it's the same as loving you, and that's loving you. And when you're like beating up on yourself, you didn't do this good enough, you know, this doesn't look right, I should have been nicer, I shouldn't have did, you know, that's also energy that's going out into the world. So being kind to yourself, loving yourself, pumping yourself up if you need be. That's like some of the best things you can do to enhance the energy that's going out into the world.
I agree. I did have one question for you on that. So a common phrase in the world these days is protect your energy, protect your energy. So when you hear protect your energy, what do you think of?
So in general, people often are talking about, you know, they gotta be boundaries, they gotta protect themselves, you know, you don't know who's for you, and you know, that type of thing. And the thing is, we're all connected. And so you don't really have to protect yourself, you just have to love yourself. And when you love yourself, like attracts like. You can't help but love me because I love me, right? So you're not gonna bring to me, you know, foolishness because of how I feel about me. The energy that I'm putting out is gonna be the energy that I get back. And so a lot of times, again, I'm gonna reiterate this, and I'm gonna keep reiterating because it took me a long time to get this. So I might think I'm a positive person and I'm thinking good thoughts and, you know, I'm nice and I do all kinds of good things for people. But at the same time, if I'm thinking lowly of myself, if I'm thinking I'm not worthy, I'm thinking I'm not good enough, I'm thinking you shouldn't have did that, and why did you have that on with that? Like,
I feel attacked there. Hey, gracious.
You look great. But these little thoughts, they will come back to you, and you're like, I didn't do anything. I'm good. Why am I getting this negative energy? Well, the thoughts that you're thinking, like I say, it's karma. It's going to come back to you. It might look different how it comes back, but it's going to come back. And so to be very, very aware of your thoughts and to get in the practice of catching yourself, because we all do it. We all do it. We, you know, that's what we know how to do best, is judge everything we see. And so when you're catching yourself in those spaces of judgment, just change the thought. And it's really that simple. Just change what you're thinking, change what you're focused on. And so yes, you don't have to protect your energy. You have to love yourself. And then you radiate out to the world those things.
I agree. I just wanted to go over that.
Well, thank you guys so much. And we'll continue this conversation a little bit more next week.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us, and just love yourself, and remember, that's the energy that you're putting out to the entire world. Until next time, this is Arvette.
Steve.
Toronto.
Hey guys.